My name's Mandidextrous, and I'm just going to go through with you guys how I create a structure to a track and think about the energy and the way I'm going to blend between drum and bass and techno, which is a big influence in my music. So I hope this helps. So yeah, once I kind of like got all of these elements together, I had my drum groove, then the bass melodies and the melodies that I wanted to have in the track, which is usually for me where it kind of always starts. You know, I get really into my drum groove and something that I feel like I'd want to dance to on the dance floor, and then I make my bass also you know, kind of respond to that as well. So I try and create a bass that is, I guess, quite simple. You know, I'm not about overcomplicating things. I know modern drum and bass these days is really advanced, and we have these producers that are like nuts, you know, like crazy different bass shots, bass sounds, all kind of stuff going on, mad power and all of that. But for me, I don't know why, I just like simple grooves, I guess. So that's probably what comes through in my tracks when it comes to the drum and bass stuff. But once I had that, and I knew that I've got a good drum and bass groove, good drum and bass drums that are kicking, nice melody, nice intro. I knew that the direction I wanted the track to go in, I wanted it to pick up energy and come into this, like, you know, really high energy techno section, but keep the elements of the drum and bass in there. And, you know, this can be kind of problematic in some ways, you know, because something people struggle with combining the faster techno stuff with the drum and bass bits is things like, you know, when you're running a kick bass, you don't want a massive snare over the top of it. You know, you don't want a snare that's like, you know, punching right down low in the, you know, the low mids, because it's going to muddy up the kick bass. So, you know, thinking about how we can, like, you know, cut our snares a bit higher to give the kick bass room to breathe and stuff like that, and trying to keep that kick bass drop quite minimal, to, you know, keep that energy and to kind of like accompany that crescendo point. So the crescendo point on this is like from bar 57 to 65, just coming up to a minute 30 into the track. And, you know, I just bring things up with rises and just a little bit more energy in the drums. So at this point, I've actually got an offbeat hat in there, kind of doing the offbeat, you know, what you'd get with a kick and snare push pull kind of thing, and give the element of a techno section. And then, you know, kind of like I build it with the, I haven't got everything going on here. Yeah, so it's at this section here actually, so from 65 going up to 81, nearly a minute 50 in. So I had these, like, you know, extra elements coming in, the vocals coming in, the offbeat hi-hats coming in. I start bringing some risers in. So it has this like kind of quite smooth transition between the two elements, and it's only for a really short section, but what I find helps that transition is, and I've noticed this on the dance as well, and I actually accentuated this a bit more in the second half of the tune, but leading out of that drum and bass section, just for a small period of time, I actually changed the drums from a kind of like a late kick section like this, with the late kick there, and then I switch it to just being 4/4. Just really simple kick snare, kick snare, kick snare, just to kind of give you the idea that it's going to go into a more 4/4 kind of presence. And it's only for a short burst of time, but it really kind of works. Straight in with the 4/4 kick. And in this section here, it drops predominantly straight into the big 4/4 kick bass thing, which brings so much energy on the dance floor. I always find that when you have like a big crescendo that drops down to just the bare basics, which is essentially what the fundamentals of dance music is mostly about, and especially high energy music like drum and bass and stuff like that. I mean, I don't, I said earlier, I don't really have much chill to myself. Like, I don't have these like kind of like relaxed sections and stuff. Everything's about building that energy a bit more. So having it come out of that uplifting drum and bass bit where everything's rising into just straight a kick bass, the damage it causes on the dance floor is unbelievable. It's great. People love it. And at the moment in drum and bass, there is this big surge of people writing these big drum and bass tunes that have 4/4 sections. The brand new link up between Dimension and Subfocus is exactly that. Dimension's been doing it himself. Even AMC's been kind of doing this thing as well, which is really, really great to see. But I kind of keep things going at this point by kind of introducing 4/4 elements that you'd get in a normal techno tune, like offbeat hi-hats and claps here. And again, this is utilising that clap that I had in the drum and bass section earlier to bring it through into the techno section. And, I think that helps marry the two things together as well, because, when producers are looking at writing a 4/4 section, especially when it involves DnB as well, having that big snare hitting down in the low mids can really make it hard. So, use the other elements that are going to work in it, the higher elements. This clap here does really, really well. And then eventually, I think I do bring back in the snare here, but on the staggered beat. But I've kept the kick bass on the 4/4, kind of like, pluck bass. But I've switched from the 4/4 kick into the kick snare, which keeps that 4/4 element, because essentially if that snare was a kick, it'd still be 4/4. So, you kind of bringing things up at this stage again, more rises. And then we have this like crescendo bit again. The 4/4 bit again, and then it drops down into this kind of like atmospheric build, which is again probably one of the most chilled parts of the tune. But that's what everyone wants, that kind of like breather, lull, kind of part of the tune. And then we bring it up again. And back into that crescendo section. And then the second drop, I really wanted to make more, some people get stuck with the second drop and just copy and pasta. And I tend to really like be against that. I really, really try hard on my second drops, to the extent where sometimes I show them to people and they're like, that second drop needs to be the first drop because it's way better. But for me, it doesn't work like that, because the way that I play my tracks, because most of the time when I play my shows, it's predominantly like 80% my own music. So I really love to make, the second parts of my tunes like more interesting, and that's exactly what I wanted to do here. Is like, I didn't want to just go back to that first drop, so I went to the energy kick snare thing before going to another drum and bass section. So it kind of like it keeps it interesting, but also I've used this section here as like a kind of second build-up, because we kind of got this build-up section here, and then it drops here, but then it also kind of crescendos again. I drop the bass away, keep the kick snare going, and then back into drum and bass. So, I mean, that's kind of like a very usual method for me on how I kind of figure out what I want to do with my tracks. It always starts with, you know, a drum groove, a bass groove, usually in the drum and bass settings nowadays. And then I think about how I can bring the energy into the track with the switch up to 4/4. You've probably heard me do this in quite a lot of my tracks recently, like Techno on My Mind and Trust the Lasers, numerous tracks, this one as well, which is out on device. But yeah, that's kind of it really, and that's my kind of method to my madness when it comes to me thinking how I can implicate the 10 years or so that I spent writing hard tech with the, you know, 5 years or so I've spent really concentrating on drum and bass production. And this is a result of it, really. You know, I want the two sounds to be infused. And I love the fact that people in the industry are doing it as well. You know, some of the big guys are really pushing that sound, which is really great and really exciting for me as well. So yeah, that's I guess a walkthrough on I Don't Care, which is out on Device Records with Rene LeVice.